All right, how's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode number 34 of the ClubHouse podcast. This is actually our last episode for a while since Zach and I will have to be focusing on school and our other endeavors. But nonetheless, this is going to be a very exciting episode for everyone who's interested in law. This episode is for you. But if you're new here to the Clubhouse, you're in the right place. If you want to become successful, receive free mentorship about the various industries from top tier professionals, and reach all your dreams. Here at the Clubhouse, we delve deeper into the lives of successful individuals and different career paths, and how you can do the same to inspire others. Before we introduce our special guest for today, my name is Miguel Mendoza.
And I'm Zach Pena. So, yeah, there's going to be a very, very interesting episode for today. John, he specializes specifically in tech, in technology law, intellectual property, internet law. So he was actually a full scholarship to the National University of Singapore, 1/6 receipting from Philippines. He graduated from Yale Law School, a #1 law program in the US, and he passed the New York bar. So everybody, please welcome John Perez. Hi, John.
Hi
Hi.
guys, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much
Yeah, thank you so much
for
for
your
being
time
here.
as well, for joining us. So, as always, we ask all our guests this question, and it's what's your story? What's your journey like? I'm pretty sure it wasn't easy getting into Yale Law School in the first place. I'm pretty sure, you really had to grind and really study hard for that. So, how was that like?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'll start from high school because I actually went to high school in Ateneo.
OBF,
And,
Yeah,
OBF.
you know,
yeah.
uh,
We have so much
like a
Ateneo
lot of
guests
people, right?
here. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that because I took a sort of non-traditional path. A lot of my friends were going to Ateneo, UP after high school. And I just, on a whim, applied to the scholarship with the National University of Singapore. I spent 1 month uh, in Ateneo University, and then I got the call that I had been accepted to that program. So I didn't end up staying in Singapore longer than my 4-year program, but it really opened my eyes to what else was out there, different perspectives, different people. And so I was just thinking about what my next step would be. I was talking to my family. My grandfather actually did his law degree at Yale too.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, like, why not give it a shot? That's an exciting life, intellectually stimulating. You'll meet a lot of different people, a lot of smart people. And so I actually spent a year preparing, crafting my applications, taking the most difficult entrance exam I've ever taken. Thankfully, it all worked out. And I sort of went through the law school process, and now I've been a practicing attorney in New York City for this is my 6th year, so 5 full years.
Wow.
I went around in the law a little bit. I started in banking, mergers, acquisitions, securities law, so business law, and then I did government work for 1 year at in one of the U.S. courts. And now I've found myself in the internet space where I represent Google, Spotify, Hulu, Disney, sort of the big players in all of the cases that they sort of have in front of them right now. So I get to be very relevant as a lawyer. I get to do interesting work, and I'm sort of happy with where I've ended up.
Yeah, that's great. It's so good to see that you're succeeding in what you do. I remember, because if you guys don't know, to all the viewers, I'm actually second cousins with John. And I
Yeah.
remember our Lolo would always praise him and give, his speeches that my grandson, he's from Yale. And yeah, I've looked up to him, of course, ever since. I don't want to jump into questions right away, but then this just popped up in my head, and I'm actually really curious to know your side of it. Because I've been reading about Facebook a lot recently, and there's so much controversies when it comes to Mark Zuckerberg's
Yeah.
intentions when it comes to Facebook. So he's even planning to change the name and to change the whole gist of his brand because he's like people are saying he's pushing for what is it like for people to be more like self-conscious or something like that. Like what's your take on that?
On sort of the evolution of Facebook and tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think part of the reason that I want to be in tech is because I think this is really the future. Like when you talk, for example,
Definitely.
about Facebook, it's not just Facebook. You know, Facebook has e-commerce, it has advertising, it's now going to do virtual reality. So they really touch basically every aspect.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, like there has to be a push, and sometimes lawyers can contribute to this push of having sort of a more ethical outlook on business and a more ethical outlook on how social media influences people. Because, you know, social
Yeah.
media had a huge impact. It has a huge impact on elections. You know, it has a
Definitely.
huge impact on, you know, on racism, on negative beliefs. So it's nice to be able to be a part of that space and to try to construct something that is a little bit more socially conscious.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's so well
Yeah,
said.
what do you guys think about tech though? Like, do you think it's sort of a space for good, or do you think that there are things that we should be watching out for? I'm curious about what non-lawyers think about it too.
Yeah. You
Yeah. I
well
think. I
for
think.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
I think tech is the future, but we just have to be aware of what's going on. Like it's very important for a lot of people to be aware of the current events happening around the world, especially because it will eventually like affect each and every one of us, especially the evolution in tech. And I feel like the big players, let's say like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos and all of those that are revolutionizing tech, they should also do it with good intention because it's gonna affect the whole world as well. So
Yeah. Well, I think for me, when it comes to tech, it's such a creative and innovative space. Like, there's so much room for it to grow. There's so much space for it, for people to still explore tech. And I think that's like something that's really good and something that's really bad at the same time. It's good because you don't know, what can be the next thing, like flying cars or I don't know, something crazy like that. But the downside with that is, the average people, they don't know um the hindrances that can be brought by tech. They
Yeah,
don't know like the problems that can happen with it. They don't know if it's like, slowly eating their brains and like, corrupting their minds in a way. And like some people can like even like manipulate them
yeah,
or
and it
control
could
them with the
be.
things that they do. Yeah, because not everyone has an abundant knowledge when it comes to tech. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, something that I've been interested in, like when you talk about success in the tech world now, like it's easy to quantify success, like when you're a law student or when you're trying to get a job. But when you're really in the field, sort of your marker of success starts to be like, am I making an impact? Like, am I actually sort of a force for good in the world?
Hmm.
And that's something that I navigate a little bit in my job, especially because of everything you said, you know, about how
Yeah.
tech can be a force for good or a force for evil.
Yeah. I remember I was even talking to one of my friends who's taking up law now. And then he had a paper on ethics, on whether something is ethical or not. And it made me think so much because the problem that he mentioned to me, I think it was, it was about like a journalist. Like, does a journalist have a right to record someone? Like when he has an interview or like secretly record? Like, does he have the right to record that without his consent? But let's say
Mm,
the stuff he's saying is like about corruption, like he mentions it. So does the journalist have the right to post it and show to the public? Because if he shows it to the public and everyone's gonna know, oh, he's corrupt. But at the same time, is it ethical
yeah,
because you didn't get his consent? I want to know
Yeah.
like what's your what do you think about that as
I
a
mean,
lawyer?
it's really interesting because there's always going to be a lawyer on both sides, right? There's going to be a
Yeah.
lawyer defending that, and there's going to be a lawyer sort of working against that. And again, I'm thinking about like what is the metric of how good of a lawyer you are? Is the metric how terrible results? Or is the metric that you're actually upholding your moral compass and you're doing
Yeah.
something that you think will prevent corruption? I think that that's something, especially in law, that gets really, really muddy. It's like, are we just trying to win or are we supposed to be advocates of change? And, when I represented banks, when I represented sort of big financial institutions, sometimes I had to grapple with that. I would write a really good brief, but I would wonder, like, but is the bank on the right side here?
Mm-hmm.
Could is the opposing party actually the one who should be winning if I were to just follow my moral compass? So I guess it's something specific to law that you don't think about a lot. It's like the moral and the ethics of representing clients and not
Yeah.
knowing who really is in the right.
Yeah. And
So yeah,
again,
I guess
like
that's a long way of saying I don't have an answer. It's something really important.
yeah. I can also imagine just how like pressuring it is also to have those cases, especially when you're representing like a really big company. So like how was your first case like for you like in the real world?
My first case. So it's funny. I think that my first case was when I was an intern and I was helping represent actually a country. So I can't say who the country was, but our firm was literally representing the government of another country because they had
Wow.
basically released securities and then weren't bringing them back. So that was actually the scariest sort of introduction to law ever because you would think like maybe they'll give you a small case where it's just one person, one
Yeah.
person against another person. But no, like my first exposure was literally we were representing an entire country. So that's been, but being thrown into the fire has been good because now I sort of talk to clients in big companies like Google, other tech companies, and it just seems like a day-to-day thing. And once you get used to that pressure, once you sort of get over that fear, you just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's just experience and exposure and just looking for those experiences so it becomes normal to you.
Love that. Yeah. Was there so did this type of exposure, do you think Yale played a very big part of, building you and, crafting and honing your skills?
Yeah, so I would say I think that Yale, it builds you up, but it also breaks you down. So I I have never been around so many smart people in my life. And you sort of have to grapple when you're in a situation like that with feeling comfortable with the fact that you can't be the best at everything. And so I think it was a very humbling experience. It,
Mm-hmm.
it sort of makes you realize, like, wow, like when I was in my small pond, I was really, really great. And I thought that I knew everything. And now thrown into this ocean, and I realize I know nothing. I have to be humble and I have to take things day by day. And so that's why I say build you up and break you down because you sort of your conception of yourself sort of collapses around you. But I think you become more competent as a person once you've sort of taken that pressure off and realized that you have something to offer, even though everybody else does too.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it breaks you down, it shows how much it can make you stronger, how much you can get better in what you do.
Yeah. And it's not sort of, I don't think it's just the law or just Yale. Like, my brother's a doctor and so many of my friends are lawyers. And that sort of happens everywhere. Like when you're in a place that challenges you, it's really uncomfortable, but inevitably ends up really great for you.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'd say also personally, I like staying uncomfortable because that's when I know that, there's change happening and there's growth happening. Because if you're, just comfortable chilling in your house, it it for me personally, it feels like, I have to do something, or I have to stay productive, because I
Yeah,
really I really think I'm at an age where energy is at an all-time high, where I really want to like learn and take in opportunities, and I don't want to waste that time. I don't want to grow old and gray and look back at my youth and be like,
yeah.
I wish I could have done that, but I just didn't put so much thought into it. Yeah.
I mean, I can promise you that you will not stop feeling that way. You will
Yeah.
always feel that way. But don't you think sort of I personally think the pandemic has a huge effect on a lot of
Hmm.
us feeling that way too. Because we realize like, opportunities sort of can be taken away from you, things can change in an instant. And so it's
Oh
made a lot
yeah,
of things too, right?
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And we realized also that life is actually short.
Yeah, absolutely. You have
Yeah.
to take the opportunities while you can get them.
Hmm. Did the pandemic had did it take a toll when it came to the tech space, considering that there was a big shift to tech, you
Yeah,
know.
it actually didn't. In fact, this is a weird thing, but being a tech lawyer, it sort of shows you how important it is to be in a field that's highly relevant. When the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic hit, tech was at a boom, basically. I had more work than I've ever had in my life, while a lot of my friends sort of were running out of work because everything else was shutting down, restaurants, businesses. But the tech work kept coming, and you know, I think we hit basically all of our financial goals at the firm. I ended up getting
That's
a lot
great.
more experience. I
Yeah.
actually ended up in court by myself for the first time, and it was over Zoom. Like my first
Zoom.
experience arguing in front of a judge, Zoom. So, I'm a
That's
pandemic baby lawyer.
yeah. Well, the first
Actually, it's
time,
funny. I was in the Philippines, and I
yeah.
I went I had to take this Zoom court hearing from the Philippines, and my internet started going out. And I was
Oh
thinking,
no.
oh my God, I'm going to get fired. But thankfully, everything worked out in the end.
Yeah, that's good. Miguel and I also are like, what do you call it? I guess college babies online because we've
Yeah,
never experienced college on
Yeah.
campus yet.
really
But
never, never, not even a semester.
Yeah, not even a
never.
day.
That's
Yeah,
crazy. Well, at least we can all share that experience of having our firsts
Yeah.
online.
online. Yeah, I think it's crazy. But at the same time, a lot of people don't agree with Miguel and I, but we actually kind of like the online setup because we get to do other things like this podcast, for example. So
Yeah,
there's
I think that it's
sort of
great. And I think that like the pandemic is your opportunity, right? To
yeah.
really take this flexibility and run. Like I actually, with the pandemic, I don't have to commute. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm also still trying to learn new things. Like I take night classes, like in mental health, just so that I can learn and explore other areas and sort of figure out what else is out there. And I think that's sort of something I've always taken with me. Like I don't want to just stop learning. Like you want to just keep seeing what else is out there. And that's what keeps you going, really. So I think
Yeah.
that's great on your part that you actually put this together as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the pandemic also showed us that, it's possible to have a shift from working on site to online. Like I know a lot of corporations saw that it's very doable and might even be better. But you just mentioned that you also take up classes when it comes to mental health. Is that something to keep you sort of like afloat in the law space?
I mean, I think this is just also personal development, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Something that I've learned is that I can have a super balanced practice and know a lot about the law, but like we're also broader than just our profession. Like, we want to have other experiences, we want to learn other things. And so this isn't actually related to the law. I am just interested in the space. I'd very much like to expand who I am as a human being. So I guess as I get older, I also have started doing things for personal growth and personal learning too, and try to
Mm-hmm.
balance that against everything that I do for my professional development. So trying to be well-rounded. And I wonder how you guys, I know you've talked to a lot of people, and I'm wondering how much they also value being well-rounded.
Oh yeah, they go ahead, Miguel.
Yeah, no, all of them also mentioned that you should take care of yourself. Because actually, the pandemic is really an eye opener for all of us that we have to really take care of our health, our mental health. And I think that it's something very important for each and every one of us, especially today.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I want to ask you, John, among all the wonderful schools we have in our world, how come you chose Yale?
That is a good question. I think that a lot of it was because of my grandfather. I always grew up with stories about my grandfather, and it was always a really inspiring story, how he sort of went to Yale on a scholarship to make some money. He peeled potatoes in the Yale kitchen. And for me, it was sort of, following in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a huge sort of model of what you could achieve for me. And so that it holds a special place in my heart. I think the university and being there was so awesome because I felt really connected to what my grandfather had done, like long before, I even thought about school.
Yeah, I think it's just really beautiful to also do things when it has a relationship with like a legacy or like a past generation. I think it adds more meaning or it adds more
Yeah.
value to what you do if like one of your peers went through it. But like this,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it makes me go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna. You can go ahead. This is like a follow up question.
I was literally just going to say that it sort of, I look back and realize like how important it is to have role models, right?
Oh
Because you
yeah.
asked me why I chose this school, and my initial thought was like, well, I saw that my grandfather could do it, so I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I could do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so, that sort of makes me think about what else in my life I thought that I could do or I pursued because I could see someone else in front of me doing it and paving the way.
Yeah, that's actually really good that you mentioned role models because well, Miguel and I were into business, and an important thing to have in business are mentors, people to look up to, people to guide you. Do you also have mentors in the law space?
Yeah, I have I worked for a federal appeals court judge here in the United States
Mm-hmm.
who is, you know, he basically had a career as a partner in a law firm. He was a defender, and then he sort of became a federal judge, and he sort of helped direct me to this job and help direct me to the right opportunities. I
Mm-hmm.
also had professors, writing professors, legal professors, who were very open about what the industry is like, who you have to know, what you have to do to get ahead in law. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always been that at every stage, like I've had to sort of find someone to explain how it works because the law is sort of a little bit difficult to navigate, especially if you're not coming from a family that's all lawyers.
Yeah.
And you need somebody to be able to give you the information that you need to actually find opportunities. And I'm sure it's like that in business too.
Yeah. And I think it's so great, yeah, that you have a mentor, you have someone to be able to guide you because I think if you do everything alone, having a mentor, you get to um how do you say this, like, do things that you know are right. Like, you don't have to go through experiencing if you need to fail at something. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's really good
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you
definitely.
yeah. But in terms of, let's go back a bit in terms of, actually applying to these big universities, big colleges. Because there are a lot of people in high school now that are planning to go abroad. And I think a major reason to that is because everything here is online. but at the same but at the same time, it can be very like daunting to them. It can be very like fearing because these are like big universities and it's hard to
Yeah,
apply, it's hard to get in. So what would be like a few, would you have like a few tips with
yeah.
regards
Well,
to
the first tip is really to be unapologetic. I think that we're trained a little bit in the Philippines to sort of be humble and to not stand out so much. But what I've learned is that you just need to go in and feel entitled to the space. You need to sort of
that's
have
so
the
true.
courage to say, I have something to offer, right?
Yeah, that's so
Like
true.
everyone I know when I was growing up, I was in Ateneo, everybody would always think, oh, that opportunity is not for me. Like they would never want me. And the first hurdle is really just getting rid of that mindset because, everybody has a story. And coming from a different place like the Philippines is it's such an important thing for universities. It contributes to diversity. It's a different perspective, and you have just a different outlook on the world than someone from another country. So like knowing your value and knowing what you bring to the table is super important. I mean, of course, you have to do the legwork. You have to study. You have to get the right grades to fall within the range. But I think that a lot of people are held back from giving their full potential and their full effort because they don't believe that they deserve an opportunity like that. And I was there too. And I just like think that people should just believe that these spaces are meant for them. And that sort of takes you a lot of the way there.
That's honestly very well said. I think that's so true how like there's this sort of stigma when it comes to Filipinos and being apologetic and not really believing in themselves. And yeah, that actually makes so much sense. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's nice in a friendship, right? But in terms of sort of progressing in a career, like how do you get mentors except to believe that you are great and that people want to mentor you, right? It's all
Yeah.
about believing first. And that's
Hmm.
sometimes like 90% of the struggle.
Yeah, for sure. But when it came to you sort of applying to law in the first place, was law something that you wanted to do ever since like high school? So high school already, you were already like saying, okay, I need to get I grades, I need to get A's so I can get the Yale Law or Singapore and US Law, or it's something that was like kind of like a last minute thing also.
Yeah, it's really funny you ask that. The answer will be no. I
Mm-hmm.
actually had no idea that I wanted to be a lawyer until I graduated college. And I actually majored in psychology in Singapore. I thought that I was going to become a therapist. And I sort of made a decision when I graduated that I wanted to try something else. So I did law. I didn't think of Yale. I didn't think of these things until I decided I wanted to be a lawyer and then put the effort in.
Did you
I
not
think
think
that,
it was too late?
I mean, I took a year off. So, and that was a little stressful on my part because everyone's like, you should always go, go, go. But
Yeah.
I just took that year to really think and to decide what I wanted to do. Um, but yeah, I think that many of the things I would not have predicted, like maybe I wouldn't have predicted that I'd end up here graduating from college. And when I graduated from high school, I wouldn't have predicted that I would have ended up in Singapore. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes things just happen very quickly. And sometimes planning everything is great, but you need to be flexible to whatever opportunities present themselves in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. And like that's what we're trying to say also to our listeners and our viewers. Like even if you're in college right now and you're a senior and you're still not sure what you want to do, it's completely like fine. It's okay because you'll eventually find what you want to do
Yeah.
in life as well.
And you have so much time. I wish that someone had told me when I was younger, like, you have your entire career to decide what you want and who you want to be.
Right.
And so you can take your time. Like, even now, I'm reevaluating, like, where do I want to be? Like, what do I want to do? And I'm deep into my career. And I think, like, taking a
Right.
break and thinking, you shouldn't feel pressure just because everybody else is sort of following the path. Like, you can take
Right.
a break and think.
In these times where you take breaks, for example, this 1 year break that you took, what are some key things that you did that gave you a clear picture, that gave you a clear direction at what you really wanted to do? Because there are times when even me, like I would try to get some time off and think, what do I really want to do? But most of the time it's like it's still kind of like I want to do a lot of things, you know? Like what
Yeah.
what what helps you, like, go tunnel vision in a way?
Well, what helped me is doing things that I realized I didn't like. During that year, I was trying jobs, I was interning, I was taking action and trying to sort of figure things out by a process of elimination. So I remember trying a little bit of marketing. I remember trying a little bit of business, a little bit of finance, and I was like, this is great, but let me try something else. And so when I say a break, like, I didn't sit down and think about it. I sort of went out with no pressure really and just tried so many things and tried to see if they fit. And a lot
Yeah.
of the times I think it's a process of elimination. Like, you will
Mhm.
know once you find something that fits.
I think that's really well said because um I think one of the problems also in our generation, specifically for me and Miguel, is that a lot of us tend to focus on just one thing and think that if we're good at it, okay, we're going all in on this. But I think the fact that we're still so young and that we still have so much years, to still grow and still to learn so much things and to take in opportunities. I think what you said is really valuable to, like, dip your toes in this, try this. You'll never know if you like it. What if you like it more than what you're doing now? Yeah.
Yeah. And in many ways, it's better to do it early before you make investments. Like, I have friends who went through law school and now are either doing software coding or doing therapist work or
Yeah.
running a business or going for more education. I'm like, we're all in this process of figuring out what we want. Like, take the time when you're younger to do more of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that process, it goes on your whole as well. Like, you're always gonna constantly look for things that you actually like doing, that you love doing.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't want to feel chained to your profession. You want to feel like you can move and you can decide that you want something else later on. And I think that we should not add stigma to that. Like, we should encourage that because people are, you know, more holistic than we give them credit for.
Yeah. 100%.
So John, I wanna ask you, like, if you were, let's say, about to enter college again, would you have done the whole process like all over again? Like, would you have went to Ateneo and then go to like Singapore, then go to Yale? Would you have done the whole process again?
That's a difficult question because I think that, you can take a lot of different paths and
Yeah,
reach the same result.
right.
And so, sometimes I think about that. Like, what if I had stayed in Ateneo, or what if I actually took the law exam for UP too? What if I had practiced law here? And, I think that the answer will be sort of no, I wouldn't do it any other way because it led me here.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I'm like, I could have found another path that would have led me to happiness and career success. And, you know, I just don't want to put pressure on anybody, because I think that what's important is what you do your experience and what you
Mhm.
make of your experience, and not
I
necessarily
agree
which
with that.
program or which program. Like, you can make the best out of wherever you are and find joy and meaning in that. And I'm glad you guys agree. I hope you guys agree.
Yeah, I agree. You know, one of the things that I realized also, and I'm glad I realized this at a young age, is that life doesn't really have any formula. It doesn't really have any key things that you have to do all the time. Like you just have to do really great in what you do, and from there you can also reach the same results or even better results. Because you don't really have to follow anyone. You don't really have to follow one thing. You just have to go through life and do your best at whatever you do. And I think, yeah, like there's no formula in life at all.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure, right? Like, I think young people now are being told that there's like a path that you follow to success.
Yeah,
And the older that I get, the older the
yeah,
more I realize that that's not true.
right,
Like, you are making your experience, and all you have to do is be present. And as
yeah,
long as you're present, you can make something valuable out of that.
right, yeah,
Yeah. Especially how the media presents it. Like, especially like with TikTok, for example, they say, oh, if you want to do this, these are the steps you have to take. You have to do this, you have to do this if you want to be successful. And then it gets so much engagement, so much views. And I really think it
Yeah,
affects these people, and, it makes them follow it instead of doing their own thing.
yeah, and you need to know yourself, right? That path can't be right for everybody. And I think about my own path. I literally went to multiple countries and tried
right,
different paths and different things, and I'm still doing that. And that's what works for me. It's not going to
yeah,
work for everybody else.
right,
Definitely. So yeah, I've seen that there is a very bright future for you, John. Like, you've tackled pretty, like, a lot of aspects in your life, and you're still continuing to learn and still continuing to grow,
amazing.
and that's great. So what are the next steps that you'd like to take in the future? Like, where do we see John, like, maybe in 5 years from now?
Ah, good question. Well, you know, I've been working at law firms a lot. And a lot of work that we do at law firms is we're representing companies in court or in deals. I actually want to maybe try working for a company, trying to build a company, either a small company or a startup, something in the tech space, and how it feels, and whether it feels fulfilling to be able to contribute to the space as a lawyer in a different way. Other than that, I also want to pursue, you know, maybe if I have time to do part-time counseling, like once I get my degree, maybe I'll want to sort of have a second career or a career on the side. And sort of that possibility excites me, that you can do more than one thing and you can be a more complex person and you can still be happy and have a meaningful career. So I'll
Yeah.
That's
get back to
amazing.
you. I'll get back to you though, like tomorrow.
Yeah, I really think Elon Musk says it best on, you have to do something that excites you in the future. You have to do something that will excite you to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask you a question, because Miguel and I are also very interested in the tech space when it comes to business. As a tech lawyer, what trends do you see in the future happening with tech?
Well, that's a very difficult thing because tech now is really getting into the speech and politics bubble. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that tech is going to be incredibly political. And in the
Yeah,
future, tech companies are going to have to grapple with whether or not they're going to take responsibility for content on their platform. So right now, they're not responsible for what the user posts on Facebook or what a user posts on a platform. And we're going to see changes there because, as you said earlier in this interview, like, the government and the public are starting to like shine a light on tech and
yeah,
expect more social responsibility. You know,
Yeah.
but on an exciting note, I think that tech is going to be the future of everything. You know, it's really going to be the future of shopping, the future of currency, cryptocurrency, finance, the future of content, of music, of media. Basically, in 10 years, I just think that everything that we know is going to have something in the cyberspace. And
Yeah.
we're going to have to sort of figure out our own laws and our own customs to catch up to that paradigm shift. So it's exciting to be a part of it, I think.
Even here in the Philippines, like a lot of laws are being passed for like related to tech already. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and I having seen things, I know that now technology will try to sort of restructure in a way to
right,
either avoid that law or to take advantage of an exception. It's going to be like an ever-changing atmosphere. So there's
right,
always going to be room for like people to be creative and be flexible in the tech
yeah.
world.
It's like every day, like there's you'll never know. Like every like tomorrow there might be a new tech that's here. You never know because it's always evolving. It's always changing. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I guess I have one last question before you wrap up. Um, what are your thoughts on cryptocurrency? As you mentioned, like, do you think it's going to replace, paper bills, fiat money in the future? Because
That's a good question.
like, back in the old days, currency was like gold and silver, and it became like barter trading and like paper money. So do you think we're like in a time where it's slowly already going to adapt to cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make any predictions right now, but
Yeah.
you know, I am already seeing in my space, like a lot of the clients I speak to are talking about cryptocurrency, and a lot of, they're facing government pushback. They're trying to build on the blockchain. So there's definitely a push in terms of innovation to
Hmm.
creating more cryptocurrencies, to creating the blockchain and to building that out. So I could definitely see it playing a part. I don't know if it's going to be it's going to completely replace currency. And part of the reason is because we lack infrastructure. A lot of countries, a lot of systems cannot really support that, and we don't
Yeah.
really pay for anything now in cryptocurrency. Another thing we have to think about is, the volatility of cryptocurrency. It's sort of so many of them are popping up, and that affects sort of public perception, that affects investor sort of attitudes. So I think that it's too early to say, but what I can say is that the blockchain is what's evolving, and the
Yeah,
blockchain is going to be the future of tech. In terms of
that's true.
cryptocurrency, TBD. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything, Miguel?
No, I think we tackled a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so this has been a really, really great episode, John. I've gained so much insights and knowledge from you, especially when it comes to, building yourself and growing yourself and expanding your vision on not only the world, but, to your own perceptions, and that you can actually do so much great things. It's just a matter of, taking action. So, when it comes to, I guess, law, since that's what you specialize in, or in life in general, what would be one advice to someone aspiring to take up law?
So I think that the most important thing that I can say is that you need to surround yourself with people who believe that what you want is possible. I think that law is very difficult. It requires a lot of tenacity, it requires a lot of dedication, and it requires you to be okay with failing a lot of the time. And so surrounding yourself with people who either believe in you or have done it is really key. And it doesn't have to be like a club of people who all share the same interests. For me, it was my mom. My mom believed in me sort of without reservation, without hesitation, and even having that one person who sort of believes that you can accomplish, something as daunting as passing the New York bar is what's going to propel you forward. So surround yourself with people who believe in you and who can help you see the path ahead, is what I would say.
Yeah, that's
That's
great.
great advice.
I always mention this in the podcast, but I can mention it again because it's applicable. I really believe that you're the 20% of the five people you spend your time with. Because if you surround yourself with people who are future oriented, driven, goal oriented people, then that would motivate you and inspire you to do better and to be the same, to feed off each other's energies. But if you sort of surround yourself with people who kind of take things back or like are laid back, then more or less you're also gonna have the same vibe, I guess. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this has been Miguel. Do you have anything to say?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so this has been a really good episode. Thank you so much for joining us, John. Thank you for your time. I know we had struggles when it came to setting a time because of the time difference. You're in New York now, right?
Yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
the end of the day here. It's sort of 10 p.m. But I'm really happy that you guys had me on and that you were able to make adjustments. I really appreciate it. I know it's early for you there,
Yeah,
but I
Yeah.
enjoyed the
it was a
conversation.
wonderful episode. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers are also very, they learned so much in this episode, and I'm sure they're gonna apply it in their lives. So in a way, we're also impacting some people or whoever's listening to this episode. So, John, thank you so much for your time and for your effort here at the Clubhouse. We super appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so before we end, we always ask our guests if you'd want to, I guess, shout out a few things or maybe where people can reach out to you in case they
Where
have
people can
any,
reach out to me? You,
if they have,
you can
que-
reach out to me on LinkedIn, John Rafael Perez. I'm happy to answer any questions about career or anything. So
It's amazing.
yeah, always
Yeah,
open for
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. And to everyone listening to to this episode, if you guys are interested in other industries, we've had a lot of industries, and we have talked to a lot of top tier professionals here at the Clubhouse. Again, we want to announce that we're gonna be on a temporary break. This is gonna be our last episode for now, and hopefully you guys learned a lot throughout the past 34 episodes. We hopefully Zach and I were able to impact your lives, and thank you guys so much for always sticking by.
yeah. So as always, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to follow our social media accounts on Instagram at the clubhouse.podcast. So again, I'm your co-host, Zach Pena, together with my partner.
Miguel Mendoza, and hopefully you guys enjoy the Clubhouse. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you and see you soon.